Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back. Infamous here, talking a little bit about which race to choose for my build. If this is your first time checking out my content, feel free to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any further content coming out, as I do put up a reliable amount of content related to PvP, primarily centering around Battlegrounds. If you're looking for Battlegrounds builds, be sure to check out battleofthebuild.com. Link will be in the description. Feel free to go ahead and like and comment, as I do appreciate everybody who comes in and chats with me. If you have any questions about builds that you're looking to run, go ahead and leave it down in the comment section, as we'll be discussing here on which race to choose for my PvP build. First discussing, we're talking about the Breton. In my opinion, the Breton is a really good choice for, of course, if you're going for a Magicka build, as it primarily revolves around max Magicka reduction in terms of your cost, as well as giving you a little bit of increased Magicka regeneration. I particularly would play, if you're looking to play, for example, like a heavy armored build. In my opinion, that's where the Breton will shine a little more, especially with their cost reduction, is because they gain a percentage cost reduction. And of course, in ESO, there are diminishing returns in utilizing cost reduction. So for example, you wouldn't want to utilize a specific number. If you're using cost reduction glyphs on your jewelry, then of course adding in more cost reduction from either, for example, like you're running light armor, or for example picking, for as example, the E Breton, you gain diminishing returns off of your jewelry glyph that you will be using. So in my opinion, if Breton works really well if you're utilizing heavy armor, because it will be able to maximize the percent cost reduction that you're going to get from all of your abilities. High Elf is a really good option if you're looking, for example, to play like any sort of a bursty build. And the benefit of playing a High Elf is that they have the max Magicka, as well as the maximum spell damage added into their passives, as well as whenever you use a class ability, you regen your off stats. So for example, if you're going all points into max Magicka, then whenever you use a class ability, it will help regenerate your stamina, which of course is good for PvP, and that happens once every 5 seconds. It's a really good choice if you're running like a Magicka Sork, or if you're looking to run maybe like a Magicka Nightblade, or basically any other Magicka class. Although they've balanced the races for the most part, in particular if you're looking to min-max your build, there are certain setups that will benefit, of course, from running more of the Magicka centered races like Breton, High Elf, Argonian, as well as the Dark Elf. Then, for example, some of the other races that are geared a little bit more to stamina, for example, Nord, Khajiit, Wood Elf, Redguard, and Imperial, as well as Orc. So you have a lot more options for your for your stamina builds than you do for example, for your Magicka builds, whereas Dark Elf is kind of like right in the middle. Argonian is a really good option for people who want high sustain and want to utilize, for example, the glyph reduction for reducing the amount of time that you can utilize potions. Really good, for example, if you want it to be a tank, as they have really good self-healing. And of course, you can use the potion glyph as their basically to maximize the kit, which revolves around every time you utilize a potion, you gain extra stats for your health, magic, and stamina. So basically, when you use any pot, you gain an additional amount of stamina, magicka, and health. So it works really good, allowing you to utilize other potions and not miss out on the resource return that you would get from running a tri-stat potion. It's a really good option if you're looking for a healer or for a tank. They make okay DPSs, but there are better choices for going damage deal, especially in PvP. Really good, like I said, really good choice for tank, really good choice for a healer, like for example if you were going Templar healer, it's a really good option. Next class, of course, is the Orc. The Orc gains both the cost reduction to run speed and of course the improved run speed, as well as gaining the max stamina, a little bit of HP, and of course a little bit of weapon damage. And of course, when they're fighting, every time they deal direct damage, I believe it's every 5 seconds, they return a little bit of HP. Of course, that gets cut in half in Cyrodiil. So it's a really good option, for example, if you want it to be like the highly mobile stamina sorcerer, because they have cost reduction into running, as well as increased run speed. So it's a really good option for a medium armored stamina Sorc, or basically anybody who wanted to gain access to a little bit more run speed, obviously for a cheaper cost. And of course it has the passive weapon damage in their toolkit, as well as max stamina. It's a really good option, very sturdy, very mobile choice for many builds, but primarily for a stamina Sorc. Next is the Wood Elf. The Wood Elf is basically, in my opinion, is one of the best races in which you will typically see most Stamina Nightblades play, because they have a lot of penetration when they roll dodge. Stamina Nightblades are roll dodging left and right and center, and of course they also have more mobility. They have an extra 10% into their run speed whenever they roll dodge. That's very beneficial for Stamblades, and of course the extra penetration when they roll dodge for the next few seconds. They'll gain a little bit of pen as well as a little bit of stamina. It's a really good choice if you're going for a Stamina Nightblade. For most other builds, I say it's very niche, pretty much relegated to Stamblades. You're not going to utilize this for any Magicka builds, at least not for PvP, especially if you're looking to try to min-max your build as best as possible, or at the very least make use of some utility from your race choice. The next option is, of course, the Dark Elf. The Dark Elf is like your jack of all trades. It gains both max stamina and max magicka, as well as gaining the max weapon damage and spell damage. It's probably your best choice if you're looking to play, for example, like a Magicka DK, or if you were going to be playing, for example, a hybrid DK. It is a really good choice because it has the max weapon damage, but if you were still playing a Magicka DK, it still has the max spell damage in the kit. Of course, it has more overall stamina and magicka than most of the other races combined, because it gives you both stamina and magicka, as well as the reduction to fire, as well as the reduction to the burning passive, which is the proc. Whenever you get hit with a fire ability, there is a chance that it will proc a burning passive that does a dot, and of course Dark Elves are immune to that. The next race choice, of course, is Redguard. Redguard's really good if, for example, if you were going to be utilizing a lot more weapon abilities in your kit. For example, like Stam DK. Stam DK is a good option. A good example of, in my opinion, the best in slot choice for Stam DK would be a Redguard, because they gain direct damage when you they gain stamina when you deal direct damage, as well as have cost reduction to all of the weapon abilities, which would include as well as your weapon ultimate. That's why I utilize it, for example, on my Thrives in Chaos. You'll see the link at the top for that build, because it also reduces the amount of cost for that particular ultimate. Excuse me. It's a really good choice, especially if you're utilizing a lot of like I said, weapon abilities, because of the cost reduction, as well as being able to utilize it for heavy armor, because it doesn't have the increase to its regen. It gains most of its regen while in combat, so it's a really good choice for Stam DK, or for someone who's utilizing heavy armor, because a lot of the regen that you'll receive will be in combat regen versus out of combat regen. Your next choice is the Khajiit. The Khajiit does really good extra bonus critical damage, so it's a really good choice. For example, if you wanted to maybe go as a bow main. Of course, as well, if you are playing Wood Elf, Wood Elf is also a good option for a bow main. Khajiits gain the extra critical damage, so it's a really good choice to go, which of course increases the critical healing. So for the Khajiit, it's a really good choice in PvP to maximize their passive by going Thief Mundus, and of course making sure maybe you utilize a set, for example, like Hunding's Rage, which gives you extra crit so that you are critting a little bit more, and of course that would help to take advantage of the passive. It's important when you pick a race, when you pick a class, that you try to envision maximizing the entire kit, not just picking a race because you like that race or because maybe it's aesthetically pleasing, but you really want to fully flesh out your build in your mind or on paper, maybe using, like, for example, a build editor. Link will be down in the description for the editor. It's a really good choice for maximizing critical damage, especially for an OCP where people typically have a little bit less critical resistance. So you can maximize the amount of damage that you do from critical hits by picking the Thief, by going with sets that give you a little more critical damage, and of course going with something that will give you a little more critical damage, either by using Beast Trap or anything that gives you the buff to increase critical damage. The next option here is the Nord. The Nord is a very tanky setup that I utilized for my melee Magicka Nightblade. I particularly went with the Nord because as a Magicka build and as a melee Magicka Nightblade, the Nightblade kit doesn't have access to great healing. Originally I picked it because Nord had the extra 20% to health regen. Unfortunately, that was removed in favor of giving them a little bit more ultimate regen, which is okay. Not that great, but it is what it is at this point. They are fairly tanky, that they have an additional 4k resistance to spells as well as physical damage, as well as getting a bonus to health and stamina. They also have, which I like, the immunity to chilled. A lot of people use, for example, ice as for example in Ice Warden, as well as you'll see it maybe on some Magic DKs will backbar an Ice Staff for the slow. It's a 40% slow, but the primary reason that I like this race was because they have the immunity to chilled. When you're chilled and you're standing in Wall of Elements, it has the chance to root you at a very high percent. So that's why I went with the Nord, because a lot of people utilize ice, and so it helps me to avoid being rooted by that, as well as the minor maim that comes from being chilled. So there are typically a fair amount of Wardens that still play, and occasionally you'll come across someone utilizing Wall of Elements on an Ice Staff, or a Ice Warden for that matter. And so this helps you to stay really mobile on the battlefield. It's also a pretty decent choice, for example, if you're going for a Stam DK, not really for Mag DK, because you really want to maximize the damage on Magicka DK, because Magicka DK does lack damage. I still believe Dark Elf to be the best in slot choice for a Magicka DK, of course. Nord is a really good choice, for example, if you wanted to go Stam DK. I really like it on my melee Magicka Nightblade because I am in melee range and I don't utilize any sort of real healing or a damage shield. So going Nord on a melee Magicka Nightblade, in my opinion, is your best option. It will help reduce the amount of times that you have to go defensive, which allows you to maximize the amount of time that you stay offensive. The next option is Imperial. Imperial is kind of your all-around, I wouldn't say jack of all trades, but it is a really good race in terms of having access to max HP as well as max stamina, but also in terms of their regen. They gain an extra 3% regen, cost reduction, and of course that applies across the board. It applies to your blocking, dodging, and as well as your ultimate cost, as well as your skill costs. So it's a really good choice. On top of that, whenever they deal direct damage every 5 seconds, they will regen an additional 300 and change in terms of their HP, stamina, and Magicka. So I utilize this particular race on a few of my different builds. I find it's a really good option, in my opinion. In terms of damage, the difference between Imperial and Orc is very small, even though you gain the extra 258 to your weapon damage. But in terms of the overall function of the build, in terms of the overall damage, the amount of extra damage that you do on an Orc versus the cost reduction, the regen, and of course the extra HP that you get from Imperial, is my opinion why I prefer going Imperial on my stamina sorcerer, as well as on a Stamina Nightblade that I've played before. I just find it to be a really good choice overall over Orc. Even on, for example, like people most of the time go Stamps Orc, they go Orc. But in my opinion, if you go to the builder and put your build in and pick Orc and then turn it into Imperial, and you'll see that the overall effective weapon damage, the difference is very small, but you will have leaps and bounds of more regen between the cost reduction, the ult reduction, as well as the regen that you get from the Imperial. In my opinion, it's a really good race choice that is often overlooked because of most people's infatuation with the Orc race. Imperial in PvP, again, we're talking from a PvP perspective, especially in no CP, where regen and cost reduction really play a high role, more so than the amount of damage that you can put out with your character. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe.